Hello, everyone. It's Michelle Burnt, your host for A Healthy Spirit podcast. We are back for another monthly episode and a different topic. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss whenever we do motivational speaking or just want to pour Christ into others, and that is purpose in life. Do you know what your purpose is? And better yet, do you know your worth? God made you in his image exactly how he wants you. And so we're going to dive more into that today. And I am so excited to have a dear friend of mine, Miss Suzy Bootz, with us. And we have known each other for quite a few years now. She is a coach, a mentor, a beautiful person inside and out. She's a Christ lover, Christ follower, and an established author. Welcome, Suzy.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. So let's dive in. So I just mentioned you're an established author and you've written, I believe, is it 7 books?
7 books.
I want to know which one is your favorite and why.
Well, of course, they're all my babies. So, I sound like a mother. They're all my favorites, just I love them differently. But I would have to say my first spiritual book, Through the Eyes of Truth. And the reason it's my favorite is because, Michelle, this is the first book that I literally, when I just fell to my knees and asked God just to show me my truth. I was at a place in my life. I had lost my mom to breast cancer. I had moved. I had a lot of changes. I went from a career and gosh, I think it was 17 years in media sales and advertising. And I couldn't find a job in a new location. And talk about a shift. I mean, looking back now, God was literally shifting my life. I had an amazing career in sales, but I wasn't fulfilled. I just thought, I'm making great money. I should be really, really excited about my life right now. And I'm a person who's always in gratitude, but something just felt empty in my soul. And, sometimes when we get into that spiral of depression and anxiety, we just can't get out of it.
Yeah.
And I am probably, I am proud to say that I'm an optimistic person, but I fell into such a deep depression, I couldn't find my way out of the darkness. And it wasn't until one afternoon when I literally just burst into tears. And I just threw my hands up in the air. And it's as if it was clear to this moment. I dropped to my knees on my cold tile kitchen and I'm sobbing. And I said, God, I need you to show me my truth. And I had my eyes closed and I literally saw the word right. It was against like a black chalkboard and white chalk. And it startled me a little bit. So I opened my eyes and I closed my eyes again and I said, God, show me my truth. And again, I saw the word right. And when
Gives
I
me
had
chills.
when I had lost my mom to breast cancer, I didn't listen to my God whisper. I got it very clearly, but I didn't honor it. And I told God, if I ever get a God whisper that's strong again, I promised God I would honor it. So I went to my computer that was sitting on my kitchen table and I sat down and, of course, kind of flustered and sarcastically, I'm like, okay, here I am. What do you want me to write about?
Right.
And I closed my eyes, and Michelle, I had the most overwhelming feeling of love I've ever experienced in my life. It's as if somebody took this hot, beautiful liquid love and just poured it from the top of my head all the way through my body. And it was so pure, I didn't want to open my eyes. And I thought, this is what God feels like. And it was the most beautiful experience I've ever had, but it didn't stop there. As I kept my eyes closed, I started getting these words just downloading into my brain, like hundreds and hundreds of words. And as these words were coming through, I was understanding it. And I thought, this is what it feels like to have God connect to me. And I
Yes.
don't know how long I had had my eyes closed, but I became aware of some tapping on the computer. And I opened my eyes and I had been writing the words down that I had gotten as I was getting this message downloaded. And that was literally the beginning of my book, Through the Eyes of Truth, a conversation with God about my life, your life, and discovering our purpose. And it was through that book and through literally my answered prayer that I just wrote down word for word, where I discovered a deeper meaning with God, a deeper relationship with myself, and literally my purpose in life.
Oh, I just thank you for sharing that. And I think it's so inspiring to admit, because you look like you have it all together. You're just a beautiful person inside and out. But that's the surface. Everyone is made with flaws. That's exactly how Christ made us. And we all have obstacles, some harder than others, some last longer than others. And so to for you to share your story of, I was in a very low, dark place and I just didn't know how to get out of it. That's so real. And I think sometimes that happens to people on a daily basis. So you don't know this, but your Facebook posts mean the world to me, because every day I hear you remind people, are you listening to your God whispers?
Mhm.
What did God tell you today? Are you
Yeah.
listening? Because he's talking. And it's such a good reminder. They're short, sweet. So thank you for being my daily reminder. Um, but I love those two words, God's whispers. Can we dive into that more? Like, what does that mean? And why do so many people struggle to listen?
That's such a good question, Michelle. It's been my experience that, when I went to church as a really young girl, I mean, we're originally from Puerto Rico, we went to church every day or every week. When we came to the States, we lived by a church. So I learned what God was through the books that I read, but I didn't really discover who God was until I put the book down and started praying and started to listen. And I think we learn about God through books, but we forget that we get to develop our relationship with God, just like we've developed our relationship with our loved ones, right? I mean, we can read so many books how to do it right, but ultimately there is no right or wrong. It's what works best for you. Um, so I learned that as I deepened my relationship with God, it was more about talking and about listening. I think we forget that the world outside of us is more of the illusion and the world within us is the reality, because we're taught differently, right? But when you think about it, when we pray, we go within. When we love, we go within. When we think, we start within. Everything about our existence begins within us. So I think that we believe at a very young age that everybody else they know more about our life and our relationships with our goals, with ourselves, and what that should look like. And in the process, we tune God out. And I had to learn, as we all do through the bumps and the struggles in the road, when we get separated from God, it's not because God left, it's because we turned away. So I think we just have to remember that our God whispers are probably the most real thing we ever encounter every single day. We have two choices. We either listen to fear or we listen to truth and love. And if we remind ourselves every day that God is love, then you have to pay attention to how you feel and what you're listening to. So I think we just have to learn to be more proactive and to learn to trust our inner voice, whether that's through intuition, whether that's literally through a whisper, whether it's something, it's that knowingness. You have to learn to trust that, because that's how you deepen your relationship with God.
Yeah, I love that. And being aware of your surroundings, right? I truly am a firm believer that God is always throwing you little bits, right? Like, hey, look at this, or hey, you should pay attention to this, or hey, wake up. And we just choose not to listen, or sadly enough, we're too busy to listen.
Right.
And so he will never forsake you. He will never leave you, even if you're in the lowest point you feel ever possible right now and you think there's no getting out of it. You're wrong,
Yeah.
and he's right there to help you. So a lot of people think to know your worth, you must first have to know your purpose in life. What are your thoughts on that? And can one exist without the other?
I believe that in order to understand your purpose, you have to really know your worth. Because when I look back on my life, and, I think we can all at some point in our life look and think, okay, there's something that I have inside of me that just brings me joy. There's
Yes.
something that I can do inside of my heart that just brings me love. And I can remember in the third grade, I knew I wanted to be an author. And I knew I wanted to help women. I don't know how I was going to do it, but I knew at the third grade that I was going to write a book.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I went through my life and, we hear the voices of the world outside of us. And, you'll never write a book. Who's going to want to read your stuff? There's millions of books out there and nobody knows your name. You hear a lot of people sharing their fears, but we have to remind ourselves it's that person's fear. It's not ours unless we adopt it and then it becomes our own. So I adopted other people's fears about becoming an author. And I got really scared. It's like, well, what am I going to write about that's worthy of anybody to read? So I had to learn through my God whispers that it's about knowing your worth as a child of God, that you are all born with a gift. And that gift connects you to God because that gift is about love, right?
Mhm.
And I have learned that when I write, that's the most powerful form of meditation I have because it makes me feel connected to God. Some people are amazing artists. Some people sing. Some people are great sportsmen, sportswomen. Anything that you have in your own toolbox that brings love and joy to your spirit is what connects you to God. So when you deem that worthy, then you will find your purpose. It's not the other way around.
Yeah, and it's okay that your journey is totally different than everyone else. Also, not that the journey's different, but the timing's different.
Yeah.
Some people think it's too late. I'm 42. It's just too late, or I should have been born with it. These people are born knowing and loving Christ. That's not the truth. That's part of becoming saved, right? He was born perfect. We were not. And so I always tell people I've always had a relationship with Christ. I grew up going to church, good little church girl, but I did not truly find him, Suzy, till I too went through breast cancer. And when you face death, man, does it change you. And I always tell people there's two lives when you go through cancer. There's the life before cancer that your parents gave you, and there's the life after cancer that Christ gave you. And the second life is so much better than the first. And it wasn't that I found my worth, it's just the things that mattered in my life before had totally changed because now I found my purpose. So you may find your purpose, you may find your worth, one or the other. God has a plan for you, but you just have to ask. You may not know it. Some people are fortunate enough to realize it on their own, and some are not, and that's okay because He will help show you. Ooh, such good stuff.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people are focused on agendas. I'm one of them. I love a good planner and an agenda and crossing everything off. And they think it's fulfilling their purpose, right? Like if I just stick to the plan that I created, I'm going to fulfill my purpose. If I check everything off, I'm going to end up in heaven. And how do we know what God's plan is for us and keep the focus on him and not the paper with bullet points in front of us?
Gosh, that's such a great question because like you, I mean, I have stacks of agendas. I am a tree killer because I have to put things down on paper. Um,
Me
and,
too.
yes, and you're right. We get inundated with the time, with the goals, and think, okay, we've got to get all this done today, so then I can dot dot dot. And I think when it comes down to agenda and understanding what God's agenda is as compared to ours, I've learned in my life that I just have to ask. It's so funny because ever since I started coaching, and I'll have clients or friends call me or text me and say, can you give me advice on this? And they all will be the first to tell you my very first question is, did you ask God? And if the answer is yes, but I can't hear him, or yes, he didn't say anything, I say, then you have to go back and ask, and this time listen, because I promise you, he's not going to ignore you. He is telling you you're probably just not hearing what you want to hear, or else you're not taking the time to really listen. So, what I do during the day is I really try to pay attention to how I feel. We're guided by two emotions, right? Love or fear, God or fear. And if you can check how you feel, you know you're more aligned with the God energy rather than the fear energy, because one way or the other, we are creating from either, right?
Yeah.
It depends on which is the strongest emotion.
Yeah.
So I, like you, love to set goals, and I'm very hard-headed too. I've been beating my head against the wall, going in one direction. And finally, I'm like, okay, God, what do you want? And the door was open to the right. I was just trying to go left. So I think it's important that you include God in your life throughout the day, that God becomes a part of the process. And if you could hear my conversations with God, I literally tell him how much I loved Quest potato chips, that I don't like the way my haircut turned out. I talk to God about everything, and you'd be like, why are you wasting God's time with this nonsense? But it's my relationship, and I've learned that the more I'm aware of the God presence inside of me, the more I'm aware that it's not just about me trying to go blindfolded into where I think I'm supposed to go, but I pay more attention to listening. And that's where I refer to the God whispers. It's like, take the same time that you take to follow people's life on social media, to sit in silence and listen to your God whisper. Take a walk when you're at the gym, when tune out the world and
Yes.
start to listen, because you will understand what God's agenda is for you, because those doors are always wide open. But they
Yes.
take courage.
And where does it say in writing that you don't need him, or that you shouldn't follow his plan, or that he's not there for you, right? Where does it say in writing that there's only a certain plan you should follow and stick to it? It doesn't, right? And so we got to change. I think it's a behavior thing, it's a mentality. And so we have to just stop. Just, it's the hardest thing for society to do, but just stop and listen, right? So I love what you brought up, and I want to repeat that to our listeners, that if you are seeking advice, don't go to the internet, don't go to your spouse, don't go to your coworkers, your friends, maybe even church people. Not that that's wrong, but that's secondary, or even thirdary, right? So first you open the Bible and you pray. And so that is just perfect advice for people to listen to. And I encourage you to, I'm going to do that with my friends. Did you pray first? Did you ask God first? Oh, it's really good advice.
Yeah. And when they say he didn't answer, you know better than that. It's like, well, then go back into prayer. And this time, instead of talking, stay silent and listen, because I promise you, he has told you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I think there's two buckets. I think there's living life, living it fun, living it good, which I think most people think they're doing. And then there's living a purposeful life that can still be good and fun. Have you ever dived into, how do you know the difference? Because I'll be honest, I thought I had a really great life before cancer. Not that I didn't, but it wasn't a purpose filled life. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And sometimes I still do.
I absolutely get what you're saying. And I love what you're saying, that our tasks and our purpose can often change because we are multi-dimensional beings. I think we forget that we serve an unlimited God, and we're all energy at the core of our being, right? That's how we connect, which means that there's no beginning and there's no end to us. So I feel that as we tend to limit ourselves, we really put a limit on what God is able to create through us and what we're able to expand on, creating our own happiness. If we see ourselves first as spiritual beings, and secondly as physical people, then we realize that we're not our mistakes, because 100% of us are flawed. So when it comes down to really living purposeful rather than just our own agenda, I've learned that, again, if I can include God in everything, that helps me so much. But also, to realize that, if I can create one thing today, let me look in a different direction and see what else is possible. Like you said, there's so much behavior. We're taught young to go to school, to get an education, to get people to like you, to get your coworkers to like you, get your boss to like you. But where are we taught that we are unlimited thinkers? And the one person that we should be asking what our potential is lies within us. So I think as we start checking off that list, first of all, I tell people, dream as big as you can dream, because if God gave you the vision, he's already told you it's done. Your job
Yes.
is to align with it. He's done the hard work. Your job is to believe it and walk in that holy faith. Act as if it's in your life today. And when you start to do that, you start to realize there's more you're capable of. So I think just a shift in mindset is something that was really working for me and would probably help others too.
Yeah, and another shift in mindset is and I wonder how long it's been around, but when do you go to Christ? When you need something. When do you go to Christ? When you're struggling and there's nothing else you can do. I love what you're saying about why not turn to him for everything? There's no reason he can't be your best friend. In fact, that's the best friend to have, right? You are who you hang around. So who are you going to for advice? Who are you believing in? Who is motivating you and inspiring you? First and foremost, it should be Christ. So, I that's something I try to challenge myself with daily. Do I only pray when I need something? That sometimes you fall asleep the moment your head hits the pillow. It's so hard. And do you remember to pray because you're just thankful and grateful for the life you have?
That is such great advice. And one thing I do that I've been very deliberate about over the years is when I go to bed, I am literally saying prayers of gratitude, literally. And I have rescue dogs, and they're up at wee hours in the morning going outside. So when my feet hit the floor, even if it's at 2:30 in the morning, I'm like, God, thank you for letting me get to be a mama to these dogs. I've trained my mind to be in gratitude. And when I wake up, I'm in gratitude, because gratitude is a magnet for miracles. We what we focus on, we create. And I too used to be the one who would only go to God when I needed something, until I was in such a dark place. I just needed God. There was nothing
For
else,
everything.
nobody else who could help me. Yeah. And that's a really raw place to be. And I'm sure you've been there. Suddenly the ego is stripped, and all the nonsense around you means nothing. And then you understand, you finally get it. There becomes an aha moment when you're like, okay, I get it. It's just been you and I this whole time anyway. Now what do I do?
Yes. And part of stripping that ego and that pride is knowing God is bigger than any problem you have right now or will have. And
Yeah.
so you think this is only happening to me. I'm alone. I can't handle this. I'm not strong enough. The whole quote, God won't give you anything you can't handle. I'm actually a believer of the opposite. I think there's many things God will give you can't handle, but
Great.
that's why he exists, so that you will lean on him. So it's so good. When I was preparing for this podcast, I was really diving in, and there's so much in the Bible and online about 40 days, a lot of significance in the Bible. And I want to share a stat with everyone. It says the average lifespan today in 2023 is approximately 27,000 days. The average lifespan in 2023 is approximately 27,000 days. Now I'm going to go back to, there's so much significance in the Bible about 40 days, 40 nights, right? And one of my favorite books is A Purpose Driven Life. I highly encourage everyone to read it. And when you look at it that way, that our lifespan is 27,000 days, don't you think we can dedicate at least 40 to Christ? Sometimes you just have to strip it down and do a little gut check and math, right? We think we're so busy, and I'll get to Christ. I'll get to him. Oh, it's coming. Tomorrow I'll stop praying and do a Bible study and join church or a home group. But really, you need him always. So I just wanted to pick your brain on that. I mean, can we not dedicate 40 days at least out of 27,000?
That is such a good point. And it's interesting because we've all made excuses, me included. And when we look at time, the 40 days and the time that we have, there is literally no time other than this moment, right? It's called the present for a reason. And I hear people say, the older I get, the more time passes me by. But God doesn't take away 10 hours once we pass the age of 50, right? I mean, we all have 24 hours in a day, the same as an 18-year-old and the same as an 88-year-old. So we have to ask ourselves, in that time, what are we doing? Are we literally checking out and just skating through, or are we being deliberate in that time? And when you say, we have 40 days to dedicate it to God, it comes down to, in this moment is where you're building your future anyway, and this moment is all that exists. So I try to stay present in the moment, and it's hard because we have goals and we get excited, or else we think about the past. But what we think about, we're recreating. So whether it's a past memory, we're living in the past, or a future, we're living in the future. So take the same hours that you had when you were excited about being alive, whether you were 12 years old or 22 years old, and say, in this moment, I have the power to create what? And if you don't know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times in a day I'll say, God, show me what this looks like through your eyes. Because I'll get stuck. I'll get stuck in a problem. I'll get stuck in a mindset. And I have to take a step out of it and say, God, show me what this looks like through your eyes. And He does. And then I've shifted. So try to use this time, this 40 days, any goal that you have, and make it a habit, because our beliefs come from just repeated thoughts. And you can change your thoughts so you can change your beliefs. And the more you cultivate a relationship with someone you love, the deeper it becomes, the more meaningful it becomes. Well, it's the same exact way with God.
Yes. Working in corporate America, just like you used to, there's one thing I always tell my employees, the one thing you can control is your attitude, and that can make or break you. And so it's just starting the day off right. I love when you talked about gratitude, and not just prayers of needing something, but prayers of gratitude. Maybe you start the day off with prayers of gratitude, but you end the day with prayers of for others or for yourself and your family of what you need. As silly as it sounds, schedule it in.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. We all have planners, some more than others. I have a couple. You plan in every single minute of your day. So I encourage you right now, look at your planner. Is God on there? Is your Bible study on there? Is your meditation, just deep reflection, on there? If you can't find time to fit it in, I guarantee you, if you put it on your planner, you'll be in a way better place.
Absolutely. Well, and like you said, if you can't find time to fit God in, then what kind of a life are you creating without Him? So if you
Yes.
ask yourself that, then you will make time to fit God in, because you're either living in love or fear. And you can choose to spend all day creating more fear, or you can choose to say, God, this is our time. Let me see how I can continue working you in throughout my time.
Yes. And to kind of wrap up that topic, I encourage you all to look at Proverbs 11, verse 28. Um, Gosh, there were so many definitions and interpretations of this verse online, but one I really liked that goes with what we're talking about is, a life devoted to things is a dead life. A God shaped life is nothing but a beautiful, flourishing tree. So it's as simple as that, guys. Things, objects, those will get you nowhere, nowhere. But a life with God at the helm will get you straight to heaven by His side. And so when you look at your to-do list, when you look at your agenda, I want you to remember that verse, Proverbs 11, verse 28. Okay, so Suzy, you are also a dedicated life coach to so many women nationwide. Tell our listeners how you help women take control of their story. I loved when I saw that on your website.
I absolutely love coaching. And like I said, I knew at a young age I wanted to help women. And it wasn't until God shifted me out of radio and media sales and put me on this course where I just absolutely felt fulfilled. And I help women change their story by helping them understand. I took the tools that God showed me. It's like we have the three tools to create our life, which is our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. We don't need money to do that. We don't need anything outside of us. So, the way I help women is to help them change their mindset. We start at the end. What does your life look like now that you have this goal in your life at this moment? Because if God told you it's possible, He did it. So now you have to start living your life as if He's already done. And I help them, whether it's competing in a pageant, whether it's setting a new life goal, or whether it's just helping them to discover their purpose. It's like you have to ask yourself, what does your greatest life look like today? And today you have to start acting as if it's already happened because it's walking in holy faith, right? I mean, we can create things all day without him, or we can create things all day with him. And I think
Yep.
it's important that we realize we can change our story. We are not our experiences. We are not our mistakes. 100% of us are flawed. So don't allow a flawed person to judge you. You keep moving in your path. If God says you're worthy of this, keep walking, put your head down, do the work, and ignore the noise and just tune into your God whispers.
Yeah. I'll have to invite you back because I think there's a whole podcast we can do on just setting goals, right? One of the things that we dive into when we do professional development is what type of goals are you setting? Well, people say a goal is a goal. No, there's many different types of goals. And when you're wondering, is that goal achievable? Is it even obtainable? Where would I even start? I want you to change your mindset to think instead of how, what, where, and when, have you even thought about God within your goal? Right? Because guess what? It's all obtainable and achievable and realistic with Christ. But we don't think of Christ when we're setting our goals. And so that's just a whole thing we can dive into. But one thing you said that stuck out to me is life goals. There's goals for your job and goals for fitness. I've got a few of those. And goals for financial status and things like that. But life goals are different. And life goals should always include Christ. And I think they can even be geared towards him. So, we're already almost halfway through 2023, but it's not too late. Reevaluate your goals. In fact, on a quarterly basis, you should be doing that. Are the goals I set at the beginning of the year even being focused on? And if not, did I set the right ones?
Absolutely. And I personally set a mind goal, a body goal, and a soul goal. So one of those has to focus on God because that's where my soul comes in, right? And if I do a mind, body, and soul goal, then I have to include God in at least one, which makes me include God in all of them.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so last question, speaking of goals, what advice would you give our listeners that either maybe they haven't set any goals and that's okay. Maybe they've set some goals in 2023, but they just haven't started them. Or maybe they set some goals, they're working hard and nothing's happening. What advice and encouragement can you share with us?
Well, first of all, we've all been there. So realize that being hard on yourself is not going to get your goal, but also realize that giving up on yourself is not going to get your goal. We are born creators. I mean, God created the heavens and the earth, and we are all children of God. So creation is our birthright. So you don't want to go through this life afraid of creating. Your goals are your blueprint, your thumbprint into just saying, God, this life was worth me living, and this is what I did for it. So challenge yourself to step out of your fear, because fear is an illusion. Danger is real, but fear is an illusion. And the only way you can push through fear is to set an action plan and do it. Um, if you feel stuck, ask God, show me what this looks like through your eyes. Give me one goal and give me a confirmation that this was your God whisper. And you're going to start understanding what your God whispers sound like, what they feel like. And it's going to not only give you the confidence to realize that your goals are very tangible, but I don't feel that we are going to ever be happy in our spirit until we are creating, because that's who we are born from, is a creator. So just realize that the time right now is what you have. And that goal that keeps popping up in your mind, start with that one.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And when you're setting your goals, I want to end with reminding you that God should be the top goal. Literally just Christ. To grow deeper in your relationship with him, to grow stronger in your faith. I would venture to guess that if everyone had that as their top goal, chances are your other goals are just going to fall into place. And
Absolutely.
so, can you imagine, Susie, if this world all did that? If we all, every single person, had that as our number one goal, we'd be in a way better situation.
Well, your purpose literally is leading to this, because if you look at this, all of us are connected. And my philosophy is the higher I can lift you up, the higher that we're all going to soar, because we're all one. And you invited me onto this podcast because your purpose is to uplift. And somebody's going to hear my message and someone's going to share their message. So you're doing this. And if each of us can realize that if we can live our best life every single day, that the entire trajectory of the energy of the world is going to change, because one person can change the ripple effect in the world. We hear it in the news all the time, but we forget the positive is also just as impactful.
Yes, don't put off for tomorrow what you can get done today. Live in the now. I love this. Thank you so much. You are a breath of fresh air, just a good reminder that God is good. He's got these people out nationwide truly making a difference, because we all don't have a voice. Some of us are better speakers than others, but everyone can share their story because it's your story. Susie, we always love to have our guests end with one of their favorite Bible verses that they think could really make a difference. Would you share one with us?
You know, my favorite, especially as an author, is the word was made flesh. And we have to always remember this, because our words can create and our words can destroy. And if God created the heavens and the earth and the word was made flesh and dwelt among us, then we have to remember the power that we have with our tongue, the power that we have with our hands, with our words, and they are just as impactful.
Amen. What is your website for people to get more information?
It's www.suzybootz.com. It's SUZYBOOTZ. I have a lot of Z's in my name.
I know. I was telling our marketing team, I'm like, Susie's ZZ. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and just inspiring us all. God bless, Godspeed with you. I think the work you're doing is amazing. And I encourage everyone, especially women, to check out her website.
Thank you so much.
Okay, my friend, you take care. So good to see you.
You too.
Woohoo, we did it.
Yay!
Isn't that fun? I
That was
always joke
fun.
with our marketing team, if I could do this full time and actually make decent money, I would love it.
Michelle, you should. Seriously, you're a natural at this.
Oh, thank you. I love it. I still to this day struggle with sometimes what my purpose is, right? Like, I know God gave me a loud roaring mouth for a reason, and I've used it in many great ways in his name, but I still think there's more.
Well,
And
have
so
you asked
it's
him?
no, and I need to.
You absolutely need to. because if nothing else, this whole conversation was for him to tell you, he's waiting to tell you, you just have to ask. And then say, show me what it looks like through your eyes, because there's no reason that you can't do this full time and be compensated for it, because this is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and we just need more positivity. When we did a roundtable and we were talking about, there was so much conversation on what is the ROI for the podcast and things like that. And I'm like, positivity, branding, awareness of Christ. We need more of it in the world. I mean, we're literally a ministry. What are we doing to minister our people? And so we just wanted to spread positivity and be inspiring. And we've had some amazing guests on. I mean, Women of Faith and Promise Keepers and Pray.com and Mrs. America and Mrs. Universe. And I mean, just amazing, amazing stories of all these people who you think they've never had any difficulties. And every single one of them had a story of Christ to share.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really, I would start with that, because as I was just doing this, and I've had a lot of podcast interviews, I mean, you are absolutely natural and your energy just transcends, you're amazing. And I do feel that this is your calling and something even bigger. If you want your own TV show, say, God, show me what this looks like through your eyes, because we, as you know, we limit ourselves and we forget to ask.
Yep. He wants us to ask. Oh, well, so good to hear from you. I was just telling Madison I wanted to get on the website and order some of your books. I haven't read any of them, and I want to.
Oh, well, if you can send me your email, or I'm sorry, your address, I'll send you some of them.
Oh, you don't have to do that.
I'd absolutely love to. I've got some here, and it'll be my gift to you for letting me get to share my story. Absolutely.
You are so sweet. Okay, well, once we make edits, which I don't think many are needed, we'll send it to you for review. This will be in our member newsletter with 50,000 members. And then we also share it on all our social media platforms, which gosh knows how many more people that will be. And then we'll post it on our website and all that good stuff too.
That's amazing. Well, I am so excited. And
yes.
Honestly, I am very excited to see how God's going to continue using you, because miracles happen every day and they're always unexpected, right?
Every day. Well, for me, please keep posting about your God whispers. Like, it's just a daily check-in and people need it, right? Like, I just know when I go on in my story feed, there'll be something about Suzy. I watch it real quick and I go about my day. So keep doing it.
Thank you. I needed to hear that, because there's times I'm like, why do I need to post it? God, no one's even looking. So I'm like, if one person looked at it, that's you. Thank you.
They do. I think that people look and go, and they just don't have time to comment or even do emojis or anything, but they're seeing it. They are.
Well, I will absolutely keep doing that. And your job is to ask God what your greatest vision looks like for you, because I know it's going to happen.
Thank you. And when I pray on it, I'm going to reach out to you and let you know I did. So hold me accountable.
I will absolutely hold you accountable, because I know God just told me this is why we had this conversation. So you are absolutely going to be accountable.
I love it. Okay, my friend. So good to see you, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.